A light appears in the sky. It hovers. It pulses. Then suddenly it moves. But not randomly. It moves in direct response to thought. A man sits cross-legged in the desert, eyes closed, surrounded by others. They aren't just watching the skies. They're reaching out. They don't have satellites. They don't have radar. All they have is intention. And what happens next? A craft appears, right on cue. This isn't a one-time event. It's happening across the globe. Ordinary people claim they're summoning UFOs using consciousness alone. It sounds insane until you dig deeper. Because military insiders, classified programs, and scientific papers are all hinting at the same thing. The human mind might be the most advanced communication tool on the planet, and someone, something is listening. For decades, scientists searched the skies for proof of intelligent life. They built giant telescopes, launched deep space probes, and scanned radio waves for a whisper from the stars. But what if they were looking in the wrong direction? What if the signal we've been waiting for didn't come from out there, but from inside our own minds? A growing number of people claim they've made contact, not through technology, through consciousness, meditation, frequency, intention. It's been dismissed as pseudoscience, laughed off by the mainstream, and yet the US government has quietly spent millions studying it. The CIA ran black budget programs testing psychic communication. The military used remote viewing to access intelligence targets across the globe. And in the middle of all this, ordinary people began experimenting with something far more disturbing. They weren't abducted, they weren't visited, they summoned, and something showed up. This is the story of intentional contact, of the people who claim to have opened the door, and what happened when something stepped through. For most of modern history, contact with extraterrestrials has been framed as accidental, something that happens to people, an abduction, a sighting, a chance encounter. But what if it's not accidental at all? What if contact can be initiated on purpose? At least, that's the claim at the heart of CE5, or Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. It's not just about seeing a UFO, it's about summoning one with your mind. The idea came into the public spotlight through Dr. Stephen Greer, a trauma surgeon who left medicine behind to launch the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence in the 1990s. But Greer wasn't just looking for saucers, he was looking for a new way to engage with the phenomenon. He believed that consciousness itself, human awareness, intention, and focus could act as a signal, not through radio waves, not with telescopes, but with coherent thought, emotional alignment, and directed mental energy. The theory? Advanced civilizations aren't waiting for broadcast, they're waiting for resonance. So, Greer developed protocols. Meditation sessions designed to quiet the mind, raise awareness, and focus thought into a kind of beacon. Participants were taught to visualize their location from above, zooming out from their city, their country, and eventually their planet, like sending up a psychic flare, if you will. And the results? People started reporting strange lights, craft appearing over group meditation sites, synchronicities, sightings, even full-blown encounters during CE5 sessions and nowhere else. It sounds completely unhinged, but here's what makes it harder to ignore. Multiple CE5 events were accompanied by documented radar hits, military intercepts, and photographic evidence before it could be dismissed as coincidence. Greer's team filmed multiple anomalous events in controlled settings with multiple witnesses, and even offered real-time recordings of synchronized electromagnetic shifts. Even more disturbing, the US government has shown a surprising interest in consciousness-based contact methods, despite publicly denying their legitimacy. We're talking classified experiments in remote viewing, PSI-based espionage programs, and entire research labs exploring how thought can influence physical systems. So ask yourself, if this is all nonsense, why are black budget programs studying it? And if it's real, what are we actually reaching out to? Because once you open that door, there's no telling what's going to walk through it. So let's talk about something that used to be science fiction until the government of the world decided to start funding it. Psionics. It sounds like a term from a comic book, but it's real. And at its core, it's about using the mind, just the mind, to affect the physical world. We're talking telepathy, clairvoyance, mind over matter, thought as a force of nature. Now here's where it gets weird. This wasn't just the obsession of basement-dwelling weirdos or fringe cults. During the Cold War, psionics became a matter of national security. The United States and the Soviet Union were in a quiet arms race, not over missiles, but over the mind. The Soviets had psychotronic warfare, entire institutes dedicated to exploring whether thought could ever be weaponized. I created a video on psychotronics that I have a link for below in the comment section. They were studying whether focused intention, emotions, or even fear could disrupt biological systems or influence behavior from a distance. And they weren't shy about it. Meanwhile, over in the US, MK Ultra wasn't just playing with LSD and hypnosis. They were knee-deep in the question of whether the human mind could be used as a weapon, whether thoughts could be implanted, memories erased, or actions nudged without the subject ever realizing it. And that's where the connection to CE5 starts to get real uncomfortable. Because if thought can influence humans, what else can it influence? Some of these programs were officially shut down in the 70s and 80s, but the documents that did get declassified, they read like science fiction horror stories. Covert tests with mind-altering tech, remote viewing programs with measurable results, sub-projects investigating how thoughts might alter heart rates, perception, even cause hallucinations at a distance. And while most of the public thinks this was all some failed experiment from the Cold War, the private sector never stopped. There are think tanks right now, some military, some corporate, actively researching non-local consciousness, which is just a fancy way of saying they think the mind can reach beyond the body. So if Greer is out in the desert using consciousness to contact something, and the military spent decades trying to hijack that same ability for psychic warfare, then we need to ask a hard question. Are we actually initiating contact with something, or are we being used to open the door? Because psionics isn't just about making contact, it's about control, and we're only scratching the surface here. So let's say just for a second this stuff works. You sit in silence, you meditate, you reach out with your mind, and something answers. But what is that something? Because here's where things get messy. The original claim of CE5 is that you're initiating contact with benevolent extraterrestrials, conscious, intelligent life forms who respect free will and are waiting for us to evolve enough to join the galactic neighborhood. But what if that's not the only thing listening? What if by opening the door with focused consciousness, you're also tuning into something that's been watching us a lot longer and isn't exactly rooting for us? Let's go back. In ancient times, cultures all over the world described entities that responded to human intention. The jinn in the Middle East, trickster spirits among Native American tribes, archons from Gnostic texts, non-human intelligences that manipulate perception and feed on emotion. They weren't summoned with machines, they were contacted through thought, ritual, and focused emotion. Sound familiar? Now here's the kicker. Many CE5 experiencers describe feeling an overwhelming presence before contact, a psychic pull, if you will. Sometimes even vertigo, nausea, or missing time. And not all encounters are peaceful. The line between extraterrestrial and ultra-terrestrial gets blurry fast. We assume what we're reaching out to is physical, biological, ET in a ship. But what if that's not it? What if we're reaching into a spectrum of consciousness that includes interdimensional entities, non-human intelligence that mimics our expectations, or something older, something that's always been here? Because the hard truth is, we have no idea what's on the other end of that signal. And yet, thousands of people are doing this regularly. No filters, no protections, no clue what they're inviting in. This isn't to say CE5 is inherently dangerous, but if your method of contact depends on consciousness as the gateway, and consciousness is vulnerable to influence, distortion, and even deception, then what happens when something figures out how to wear a mask? Because in all the talk of peaceful contact and global unity, there's one thing nobody seems willing to admit. We might not be the ones initiating contact. We might be the ones being contacted, slowly, subtly, by something that already understands how we think. Something that's just waiting for enough of us to open the door. Okay, so maybe you're still on the fence. You're thinking, sure sounds interesting in theory, but has anyone actually seen anything? Oh yeah, they have. And not just one or two people meditating alone in the desert. We're talking hundreds of people, shared sightings, and synchronized responses. Events that have left even skeptics speechless. Let's start with a big one. Borrego Springs, California in 2014. A CE5 team of about 40 participants conducted a group meditation using Dr. Greer's protocol. During the session, multiple white orbs appeared over the mountains, hovering in silence. Some blinked in patterns. Others seemed to respond to directed light beams, flashing back in perfect sequence with the laser pulses. Local authorities were called. The objects didn't show up on radar. They were visible to the naked eye, caught on multiple cameras, and even triggered EMF spikes on nearby equipment. Then, just as suddenly as they came, they vanished. No aircraft, no satellites, no weather balloons. Nothing that should have been there. Now, you could say it was coincidence, but this next case, it's harder to explain away. Let's go to Joshua Tree in 2018. This one's been talked about a lot, maybe because of how weirdly interactive it was. During a multi-night CE5 event, attendees meditated together, synchronized across time zones. At the exact moment of peak coherence, something happened. A triangle formation of lights appeared in the sky, dead silent, no sound, no movement, just hovering directly above the ground. Then, in a rapid succession, phones glitched, watches reset. A few people reported sudden emotional downloads, intense waves of joy, grief, or purpose, seemingly from nowhere. And the wildest part, a group 600 miles away, doing the same protocol, saw the exact same formation at the same time. Two locations, same experience, no contact between them. But these events weren't undocumented fever dreams. They are GPS logs, time-coded footage, audio recordings, witnesses from multiple backgrounds, military, engineers, airline pilots, all saying the same thing. I saw something and it responded. Another case in Mount Shasta, 2019. Participants reported a bright blue orb hovering just above the tree line. Someone aimed a laser pointer at it, not to provoke, just to signal. The orb blinked 3 times in perfect rhythm. Then, no joke, it blinked once more and vanished. That single flash synchronized with the final line of the group's guided meditation. Coincidence? Maybe. But when it happens over and over, with different people in different places, with verifiable patterns, you have to at least ask the question, what's out there responding? And maybe more importantly, why are they waiting for us to reach out first? You might think CE5 is just a fringe practice done by a handful of people meditating in the desert, but that's not even close, because over the last decade, it's exploded into something far bigger, a synchronized worldwide experiment in conscious communication. Thousands of people across continents now participate in CE5 events on the same night at the same hour, and what they're reporting isn't random. It's structured, intelligent, responsive. One group in Mount Shasta, California, described synchronized flashes in the sky responding to mental prompts. The same night, another CE5 team in Hampshire, England, reported objects blinking in 3-beat pattern, the same rhythm used in their meditative protocol. No satellites, no known aircraft, no weather balloons, just light formations moving intelligently across the sky, with zero coordination between groups. And here's where it gets unsettling. These aren't isolated incidents. These mass sightings have been documented multiple times. Different time zones, different hemispheres, same result. What do we do when unconnected groups start seeing the same lights doing the same things at the same time? Because that doesn't sound like group delusion anymore. It sounds like a coordinated response to focused human intention. And maybe the wildest part? Participants often describe the exact same emotional surge, peace, awe, a deep sense of being seen. It's not a rush of adrenaline, it's a recognition. Something is looking back. And that leads to a bigger question. If a global network of people can call something down with their minds, what exactly are they talking to? Now let's get real for a second. You think all this consciousness-based contact stuff is just for stargazers and hippies in the desert. Think again, because the same US government that ridiculed UFO believers for decades, they were quietly pouring millions into researching how the mind can reach across time and space. You've probably heard of Project Stargate, the CIA-funded program that trained people to remote view targets across the globe using only their minds. Spoiler, it worked well enough to last over 20 years. But what most people miss is this. They weren't just spying on missile silos, they were targeting non-human entities. CIA and DIA archives include documents where remote viewers were tasked with observing UFOs, extraterrestrial craft, and even off-world civilizations. One viewer was reportedly tasked with describing the surface of Mars in a million BC and came back with details of tall beings, ancient structures, and a dying civilization. Sounds familiar? But it didn't stop there. Declassified DIA memos reveal experiments where subjects attempted psychic contact with unknown intelligences, conscious projection, directed thought, emotional resonance. Ringing any bells? Because this is exactly what CE5 teaches. The Silva method, another consciousness development program used by both intelligence and law enforcement, taught users to achieve altered states to access higher intelligence. Sounded mystical, but it made it into police departments and intelligence training manuals anyway. And then there's Pat Price, one of the CIA's most skilled remote viewers. According to multiple sources, Price believed extraterrestrials were already embedded on Earth, living in hidden underground bases and influencing global systems. This isn't science fiction. These are internal government files. It sounds insane, but the deeper you dig, the more these programs mirror CE5 protocols: quiet mind, emotional coherence, focused intent. And even Dr. Stephen Greer has claimed that insiders confirmed CE5-like efforts have taken place in classified circles, with much stronger results than they'll ever admit publicly. So ask yourself, why would intelligence agencies study all of this, fund it, document it, and then bury it? Why train people to mentally interface with non-human intelligence if it was all just nonsense? Unless it wasn't. And if that's true, then the question isn't whether CE5 works, it's who else has been using it and why. At this point, you might be thinking, we've left the launch pad. We're in orbit. Group meditation summoning lights from the sky? Intelligence agencies studying consciousness projection? It all sounds too wild to be real. So let's slow down and ask the only question that matters now. Is any of this real? Not the stories, not the testimony, the phenomenon itself. Is there any part of the CE5 consciousness summoning remote perception of non-human intelligence thing that holds up to actual scrutiny? Let's start with the soft ground. There are thousands of anecdotal reports. People in groups, strangers, all experiencing the same phenomena. Unexplained lights that appear in direct response to intention. Meditation that leads to sightings. Shared contact dreams. Objects that flash, hover, then vanish as soon as the session ends. It's consistent, but anecdotal, which makes it easy to dismiss. Except, not everyone's dismissing it. The CIA and DIA weren't just studying psychic warfare for fun. They funded the Stargate project for 2 decades, exploring remote viewing, mind-based targeting, even non-local communication. And we now know that those documents reference perceived encounters with off-world intelligences. Harvard psychiatrist Dr. John Mack, who studied abduction experiences in detail, concluded that while he couldn't prove physical contact, the psychological consistency across experiencers was too structured to ignore. Something was happening, and it wasn't delusion. Now let's talk science. There's growing evidence in fields like quantum cognition and neurobiology that consciousness might not be confined to the brain. Studies show that observer intention can affect the outcome of quantum experiments. Researchers like Dean Radin at the Institute of Noetic Sciences have spent decades publishing peer-reviewed studies suggesting that human consciousness can interact with physical systems, random number generators, photon emissions, even DNA. Is that proof that aliens are responding to CE5 signals? No. But it does suggest that our minds may be capable of interacting with reality in ways we don't fully understand. Why are governments investing millions into these programs if it's just hallucination? Why is the Defense Intelligence Agency contracting private studies on biocommunication with non-human intelligence under official programs like the AAWSAP and the ATIP? If none of this is real, why the secrecy? Here's where it gets sticky. Even skeptics admit CE5 encounters follow intentional-based patterns. Multiple groups in different places report identical light patterns, synchronized flashes, and specific physical responses. Not random, not ambient noise. We're talking about repeatable, targeted results that align with conscious intention. So what are we left with? Either thousands of people across the planet are experiencing a shared delusion so complex it behaves like a communication protocol, or something is out there, something real, and it's not responding to radio waves or telescopes or radar. It's responding to us. And that's what scares people. Because if contact doesn't come through science and machines, but through thought, coherence, and directed awareness, then it means anyone can do it. It means we're not just looking out into space anymore. It means space might be looking back. You've been told for years that contact will come through telescopes, through probes, through sanitized press conferences hosted by men in suits who will look you in the eye and tell you what's safe to believe. But what if that's all wrong? What if the signal we've been waiting for isn't out there? What if it's inside you? Because if even a fraction of these CE5 encounters are real, if consciousness can reach across space and pull something closer with nothing but thought, then we've been part of the contact mechanism this entire time. The antenna? It's us. Now let that settle in. If humans can summon craft, lights, or intelligence just by aligning thought and intention, then it means the thing we've been waiting for has already arrived. It just didn't land on the White House lawn. it landed in our minds. And if we accept that, then here's the gut punch. It means this entire time they've been watching, listening, waiting to see if we figure it out. Like some kind of galactic test, one that doesn't measure technology, but awareness. And most of us are failing. We're too distracted, too divided, too busy mocking anything that doesn't come in a government-approved press release. And that's the point, isn't it? Because here's what's worse than being alone in the universe. It's knowing we were never alone and we never noticed. They didn't hide, we just weren't looking in the right direction. And now comes the most disturbing possibility of all. What if contact isn't something we're preparing for, but something we've already passed? What if the real moment came quietly in a field with a group of nobodies meditating under the stars and someone answered? No broadcast, no landing, just a flash, a connection, and then silence, because they realized we weren't ready, not to meet them, not to hear them, and definitely not to understand what they are. You wanted disclosure? Maybe this was it, and you'll never look at the sky or yourself the same way again. Thanks for watching. I'm Ralph, and this has been Divergent Files. If you made it this far, you're not just casually curious, you're someone who dares to look deeper. So if this episode hit a nerve, made you question something, or just made you stare out the window a little longer tonight, hit like, subscribe, and all the buttons that feed the mighty algorithm gods. You can support the channel for as little as $3 a month over at patreon.com/divergentfiles. We're not backed by sponsors. We don't play it safe. This show exists because of you, period. And hey, we're not just on YouTube anymore. Divergent Files Project Podcast is live now across all major platforms, unfiltered episodes, raw investigations, and no algorithm holding us back. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment. Tell us your theory. Ever tried CE5? Do you think this stuff's real? Or do you think it's just wishful thinking with a light show? We read it all, and what you say shapes where we go next. Because this channel isn't built on clickbait, it's built on curiosity, yours. So stay weird, stay skeptical, and maybe, just maybe, ask yourself if the next time you look up at the stars, someone's looking back. These investigations are powered by those who believe truth still matters. Thank you to our Patreon supporters. Join the mission at patreon.com/divergentfiles.